Hey, it's Dan from Korneff Audio, and I want to show you our dope new plugin, Puff Puff mixPass. A lot of you are probably wondering, what is this thing? And I'm here to show you exactly what it does and how it works. The heart of this box is a combination of wave shapers and upward expansion that can give you all sorts of different textures, from slight saturation to an analog warmth, to restoring dynamics from things that have been overly compressed, all the way up to a broken speaker or a fuzz box. You can do so much with this thing. On the output, we've added an output clipper so you can actually use this for mastering as well. Now I have plugin Doctor open here, and with this oscilloscope, we can demonstrate what all these knobs do to influence the waveform. At its default setting, you can see when we add more signal to the input, the top of the wave will start to fold back onto itself. And this is going to create some really cool sounding analog-ish saturation. Just by leaving it at the default setting is so great for so many different things. Now for the basic controls, we have a slider for dynamics. Counterclockwise is more dynamic, so more peaks. Clockwise is going to be less dynamic, so crunched. We also have the amount, which is kind of like a mix knob, so it's going to adjust the intensity of this processing on the waveform. Now by changing the dynamics, you can see the waveform is shifting a little bit. It's kind of bulging out a little bit as we go to less dynamic, and it kind of tapers in a little bit more when we go more dynamic. And it may look minimal on the screen, but the changes with this are drastic, saturation wise and dynamic wise. So in my sessions, I'm using the more dynamic side for drums and percussive elements, acoustic guitar, and then I'm moving over to the less dynamic parts for things that I really want to smush down and make more exciting. You can get a variety of sounds just with these two sliders, and most of the time I barely touch anything else. I'll either give something more dynamics, more punch, restore some of the transients, or I'll go to a vocal and maybe smash it down a little bit more, get a little more grit or saturation out of it for that vibe. But I've also added a couple controls at the bottom left to really take this thing to another level. We have the sonic integrity control and the emphasis control, and these two are very dependent upon each other, and the slightest tweaks can really make some wild sounds. So I'm going to slide the amount all the way up to 100% so we can see the extent of what these controls can do. Now if I go to sonic integrity and start sliding this towards the broken side, you can see instantly with this tiniest amount of adjustment, we are getting some really wild waveforms. And by sliding it up to the fuzz side, we're going to get more of a squared off wave. And now we can adjust the amount of this processing, sort of, by using the emphasis control. So if I take this back towards the broken side here, and we can slide the emphasis control towards less, you'll see we start to lessen the amount of processing happening with the sonic integrity. And as we drag this towards the more side, this waveform gets even more extreme, turns into Batman at the top there. Now the same thing for the fuzz side. If I drag it towards clean, I'm seeing very little effect on the sonic integrity. Of course, as we add more, it starts to get more unpredictable. Now eventually, as we bring the fuzz all the way up, it just becomes some sort of square wave. Now keep in mind, you can blend this with your original signal. So if we dial in a really fuzzy square wave, now we can start backing down the amount of processing, and check out the peaks coming back to life here. Now we have some sort of missile looking shape. Who knows what this sounds like? It's got to be wild. Now the other thing to keep in mind is that you can also use the input gain up here to actually drive this circuit more. So we'll take this all back to default settings here, basic sine wave. We'll take our amount and slide it all the way up. And you can see that as we add more gain, eventually the peaks hit 0 point and they can't go any further. And now we have a whole other style of saturation just by using the input trim. Now this is particularly handy when using the sonic integrity to mangle your sound. So when you go to the broken side here, sometimes it almost acts like a gate where just a little bit of the signal's coming through. So now you can take your input trim and add more into it, and again, we have a whole other shape that we're dealing with now. Possibilities with this thing are endless, and you can create some really, really crazy distortions with this. And then of course we have the clipper. You click this button here to turn it on, and it has two basic controls. We have the gain, so you can either drive more into this guy or less, and then the ceiling, which is going to set the maximum output level from the clipper itself. Now this clipper is kind of cool because it takes all of the crackling and overs that happen and EQs them so they're not as bright. So you can actually drive this thing pretty hard without hearing a lot of digital clipping. Now I'm not going to say it's perfectly clean, it definitely has a sound to it, but you can make things pretty loud. So the next control we have here is the oversampling amount. I mean, this is pretty self-explanatory. This works really well when you are pushing this box to the limit. Kind of helps clean things up while still being really out of control and wild. So next I'm going to go over just the basic utility controls here. On the left-hand side, just underneath the input level, we have our tooltips. By hovering over a control, it's going to let you know what that does. The next icon here is the built-in user manual. This will have details about how every control works. Then we have our undo button and our redo button. Above the tooltips, we have an info icon. This is going to tell you about the current version that you're running. The cloud icon is the update notifier. You can set this to check for updates automatically so you know that you have the latest version. This bug icon is how you can report any bugs you find to us directly. By clicking on it, it's going to take you to a form that you can fill out with your issues about this specific product. And the key icon is going to take you to your license manager, where you can activate and deactivate your licenses. And the last thing that we have is the preset browser. At the top here, we have a label for the preset name. The left and right arrows will toggle through different presets back and forth. The floppy disk button is going to let you save your current setting as a preset. Now our preset system uses three different columns. The first one is the bank here, the second one is the category, and the third one is your preset. So make sure that you're saving it within one of the categories or it's not going to save. Now if you click on the preset name, it's going to open up our preset browser. I've made a bunch of presets for you guys to play with, and currently there's only presets in here by me, and we're looking to add more presets soon, so keep your eyes open. So that just about covers the basic controls of this box. Now let's see what it sounds like.